Shalom. I'd like to first start off giving all praise and glory to Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the elect, the hopeful elect. You know, the men that you see around the four corners of the world pushing this truth and faith and sincerity. I also want to say shalom to the 1/3 that's going to be delivered here in America. You know, women and men that are going to be delivered here in America, and the innumerable multitude of Israelites that are going to be delivered around the four corners of the world that look like the other nations and may speak the tongue or the language of the other nations. Shalom. I want to go into Acts the 10th chapter and bring out some characteristics and some important and highlight some important points about Cornelius. If you read this chapter with understanding, you can definitely see that Cornelius is an Israelite. Cornelius is an Israelite indeed, just the way Yahweh called Nathaniel in St. John, the first chapter, around the 47th verse. He called Nathaniel an Israelite indeed, in this man whom there is no guile. And I'm roughly paraphrasing that. Um, it's very important to understand that Cornelius is an Israelite because salvation is only for the nation of Israel. And if you don't understand that Cornelius is an Israelite, then and you believe that he is one of the other nations, then that opens up the door for that would open up the door for these other nations to believe that they can be delivered, and you can and there can become a doctrine that or part of the doctrine that these other nations can receive salvation, and that's just not so, you know. So I wanted, like I said, I want to go through this chapter, not the whole chapter. I just want to read from a particular verse, starting around the 24th verse, and highlight some key points and characteristics of Cornelius, and just speak on some things through the Spirit. So without further ado, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna start at the 24th verse, but I'm gonna give a little backdrop before the 24th verse of what happened. So Cornelius was praying, praying and fasting to the Most High, and that in itself, that's a characteristic of an Israelite. These heathens ain't gonna fast and pray. If they do that, they gonna do it to their God, not to the Most High Yahweh. You know. So Cornelius was fasting and praying, and the Most High sent Cornelius an angel, and the angel said, "Your prayer has been heard." And the Most High said, "Your prayer has been heard." And then the Most High, or the angel said, "Send your men to Joppa to seek or to get Peter, surname or Simon, surname Peter, and tell him to come back to Caesarea." You know, and you read about Peter. Peter had fell into a trance. He was hungry. He fell into a trance, and the Most High sent him a vision of the four-footed beast and of all manner of four-footed beasts and creeping things upon the earth. And the Most High said, "Eat." And Peter said, "Not so, Lord. I have never eaten of things common or unclean." You know, and that vision was referring to that he seen that the common and the unclean creeping things and four-footed beasts represented the Israelite foreigners that had lost their identity, that was going after the heathenistic ways. Mainly at that point in time, the custom of the Greeks, so the Hellenized Jews, so to speak. So we pretty much picking up Peter. Peter is Peter had been approached by the men that Cornelius sent, and he had straightway went with them to come into the house of or to come to Cornelius' house, and that's the part we starting from. So this is Acts chapter 10, verse 24. Okay, Acts 10 and 24. And and the morrow after they entered into Caesarea, and Cornelius waited for them, and had called together his kinsmen and near friends. And as Peter was come in, Cornelius met him and fell down at his feet and worshipped him. Now this act right here, you might look at it in a carnal sense and say, well, that was he shouldn't have bowed down and worshiped uh, Peter. This was, if you look at this through the spirit, this is an act of humility, because um, Cornelius was a man of power and position. If you read Acts 10 and 1, it tells you he was a centurion of the band called the Italian band. So that means he had 100 men under him. To be a centurion means you're a captain or leader of 100. So Cornelius was a mighty man, was a great man. He had status and position. You know, he also was one that gave alms and to the people. He had a good report, as we're going to read, I believe, of the Jews. You know, and for him to basically bow down to Peter, it showed that was a humble act, and he dealt with order, man. He understood that Peter was above him. You know, Peter didn't have the position in society as Cornelius did, but through the Spirit, Peter was above him. And most importantly, Yahushua set up Peter to be the head of the church, So let's continue. But Peter took him up, saying, Stand up, I myself also am a man. And as he talked with him, he went in and found many that were come together. And he said unto them, Ye know how that it is an unlawful thing for a man that is a Jew to keep company or come unto one of another nation. But the Most High hath showed me that I should that I should not call any man common or unclean. That's talking about Israel. Should not call any Israelites, whether they be of the circumcision or of the uncircumcision. And we dealing with the uncircumcision, meaning the Israelite foreigners, the ones that did not know that they were Israelites, but they were Israelites, but they were following the customs of the Greeks, and speaking the Greek tongue, and the Greek customs. Uh, so call no man common, because Israel is not a common. It's not common. Israel is a peculiar people, and call them not clean, because we're supposed to be clean by way of keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, which is supposed to be faith driven. It's driven to keep the laws. You're supposed to be driven to keep the law, statutes, and commandments, based upon faith, your belief in Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. Reading on, therefore came I unto you without gainsaying, as soon as I was sent for, and asked therefore what intent ye have sent for me. And Cornelius said, 4 days ago I was fasting unto this hour, And at the ninth hour I prayed in my house, and behold, a man stood before me in bright clothing, and said, Cornelius, thy prayer is heard, thy alms are had in remembrance in the sight of the Most High. So I'm going to say this, yeah, that's a very important thing, man. Prayer and giving alms, man. Give to your brother, man. If you have, the ability to do so, then help out your brother, man. You know. And then the Most High said that was the scriptures say that alms cover a multitude of sins. And then the Most High said that his alms that he gave had the Most High had in remembrance, or was in, pretty much. Thine alms are had in remembrance in the sight of the Most High. Verse 32, it says, Send therefore to Joppa, and call hither Simon, whose surname is Peter. He is lodged in the house of one Simon, a tanner by the seaside, who, when he cometh, shall speak unto thee. Immediately therefore I sent to thee, and thou hast well done that thou art come. Now therefore are we all here present before the Most High, to hear all things that are commanded thee of the Most High. Now, why didn't the Most High just have the angel break down the scriptures to Cornelius? Why didn't the Most High just speak to Cornelius and break down, these scriptures, break down the resurrection of Yahushua? Reading this verse, it shows something, and it shows that the Most High set up men to teach other men on the planet Earth, because he sent the head apostle Peter to teach Cornelius and his household about Yahushua, explain to them about the resurrection and how, of Yahushua, as we're going to read. Acts 10:34. Then Peter opened his mouth and said, Of a truth I perceive that the Most High is no respecter of persons, but in every nation he that feareth him and worketh righteousness is accepted with him. That is talking about any Israelite that is scattered among, these other nations, that feareth and worketh righteousness is accepted in him. Not these other nations, that's definitely talking about Israelites. Israelites among these other nations. So continuing on. The word which the Most High sent unto the children of Israel, preaching peace by Yahushua Mashiach, he is Lord of all. That word I say, ye know, which was published through all Judea and began from Galilee after the baptism of John, after the baptism which John preached, how the Most High anointed Yahushua of Nazareth with the Holy Spirit and with power, who went about doing good and healing all that were oppressed of the devil, for the Most High was with him. And let me see. So I'm gonna stop there. That's I really want to make the points that I made. The rest of the chapter is good to read, but I want to highlight some characteristics about Cornelius. This has been done by the apostles and other elders and men have did numerous videos dealing with Cornelius, and going through the scriptures, showing how he is proving that he is an Israelite. As I was reading this, the Spirit just jumped on me to go into it. So I thought I'd turn on the camera and, do a video. So with that, I want to say Shalom. All praises and glory once again to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Peace and blessings to the Akim across the four corners of the world that's teaching this truth in sincerity, who potentially are the elect. Shalom to the 1/3 in America that's going to be delivered, and the innumerable multitude of Israelites that are going to be delivered that look like the other nations and may speak the tongue of the other nations. Shalom.